Good evening, everyone. Today is February 20th, 2017. It's President's Day. And welcome back to Veterans Voices, a monthly talk show focusing on veterans issues. I'm Nathan Johnson, the Contra Costa County Veteran Service Officer, host of the show. I'm joined by my co-host, Gold Star Father and Calvet Link, Kevin Graves. And once again, we have the special treat of having licensed psychologist, Dr. Shauna Springer, back to the show. Welcome back, guys.
Hey,
good
Nathan,
to see you.
Good to see you, Shauna. Good to see you again.
You look pretty dry for a rainy day.
Tonight's episode is titled Got Your Six, and we'll be taking you into a distinctly intimate area, the inner terrain of healthy relationships. The goal of tonight's show will be to present a general model of the development of satisfying, lifelong partnerships. To do this, the three of us will set the stage by drawing from our own relationship experience, as well as Dr. Springer's observations made across the arc of nearly 20 years of clinical and applied research experience. We will also hear the stories of two committed couples who have agreed to share their experiences for the benefit of others who want to create and maintain healthy relationships. Happy relationships are not the stuff of fantasy, and by learning to have each other's back as life unfolds, it is possible to become each other's soulmate.
As always, we're live tonight and would love to hear from you. I forgot to mention we've got Sam in the back here. Sam's not going to give us any questions or comments. He's going to mostly sleep back there. But you, our audience, we want you to reach out to us by phone, email, anonymous chat, send a message. Don't be shy. Tonight's topic is a very interesting one, and we hope to frame it in a very safe way for you. We've got social media as well. Look us up on Facebook or Periscope for any questions or comments. Or if you want to share your relationship story, we want to hear from you tonight. Again, joining the discussion now is an expert on relationships. She's a licensed psychologist, and she's been counseling in trauma, recovery, and lots of veterans issues. She also has written a book that has been well received. It's called Marriage for Equals: The Successful Joint Adventures of Well-Educated Couples. Dr. Springer, welcome back to the show. Good to have you.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
We want to set a safe place for our audience tonight by talking a little bit, and you've got some points that we want to hit as well, and hopefully invite our audience into the discussion. So where do we want to start?
Well, I'm excited to do this show particularly. I've been on a few shows here, but this one was one that I really looked forward to. Mm-hmm. So I want to start this by framing the conversation around the statistic that everybody knows. 50% of all marriages end in divorce. And the numbers are even higher for remarriages. It's around 63% or higher of remarriages end in divorce. And so some people, even people in my field, have taken this statistic and said things like, well, if you get married, you have a 50-50 chance
Red or black,
of success, right? So the kind of idea is, okay, so is this like roulette where I throw my ball out on the roulette table, spin it, and if it ends up on red, like, you know, maybe I'm unlucky in love and it's not going to work out for me. And this is a really important error in thinking that got me started down this path. So I started really looking into this. And within my network of friends and extended network of friends, it just wasn't the case that there were very many divorces at all. So much so that I decided to do a little bit of research. And so I did a poll, and I got a sample of over 1,200 women to participate in the poll. So nobody could say it's a convenient sample of just your closest buddies. And they responded to over 200 questions about how they formed their marriages. And sure enough, about 6% of them were divorced, even though they'd been with their partners well after most people divorce. So this was really, really interesting because they were beating the odds by so much that it really got me curious. And 20% of their parents had divorced. So their parents were beating the odds. So that's when I really started to kind of explore this area. And what I found out was that success in marriage is not a matter of chance, not at all. It's a matter of choice. And what I mean by that is that there are so many things that we can do when we are picking somebody to, engage in a lifelong partnership. We want to be really thoughtful and intentional in terms of who we pick, the character of the person that we're with. We have to work on our own character, and over time, we really have to become each other's soulmate. And we really don't show up as soulmates. Everybody might think we do, but that's really not a helpful model.
So explain that a little bit more, but this is kind of interesting to hear because, you know, that statistic is such a headline for national media and such, right? 50%, and it creates a lot of fear for me that, oh no, I might become one of the 50%, almost, you know, different sides of the fence. And so you're providing a little bit of relief. And what you're saying is it's not a red and black roulette thing. Instead, it has to become a very intentional thing. And in fact, the evidence shows that more marriages succeed than fail.
Yeah, there's a graphic that I wanted to share actually of a wingsuit flyer. It's a graphic of basically this suit that is basically what a flying squirrel is born with. And people apparently jump off cliffs and
cool
you know,
videos on YouTube about that.
Yeah, right. So to give an analogy for what we just talked about, let's imagine we had 100 people and we gave them all wingsuits. And we said to the first 50, I want you to go to the top of this cliff and go ahead and jump off. And the other 50, we're going to take you and really teach you through an intensive course how the wingsuit works. And we're going to teach you the dynamics of flight, how to move your body to brake against the air pressure, how to land safely. And after that course, we're going to have you jump off the cliff. Now let's be kind and say there's a lake at the bottom. But if there weren't a lake, then
How deep is the lake?
the lake is deep enough to be kind.
Is it a California lake?
A California lake,
Okay.
recently in the rain.
Okay.
So 50 of the people that jumped off at first, let's say they would have crashed badly if they hadn't had a lake there. And the other 50 would have landed safely. So now we've got a 50% crash rate.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean that it's a chance thing, right? And marriage is the same. It really is the same. So I've spent the last maybe decade really working with veterans, couple by couple, sometimes in seminars and larger classes, helping them understand what the dynamics are of a successful marriage, a successful lifelong partnership or relationship, and how we can create that.
So I think that's important to talk about tonight is that we're not just talking about marriage, we're talking about relationships in general, whether that be with a partner, a long-term friend, someone that you have some type of intimacy in one form or another, emotional or such. And so when we talk about this, we want to talk from our own experiences to invite our audience to join us in the conversation. So when you talk about we really want to spend time to learn about our partner, are you talking about in a sense like a courtship? Is there like a recommended amount of time that someone should spend? You know, I knew my wife for maybe about a year and a half before we got married. Is that too soon?
I would say you got lucky. You picked well and you got lucky, but the couples in the research that I did dated for longer before they got married and married at an older age. Those are two of the findings in that study. And I think, you know, we can all take it as kind of a rule of nature that we are never as compatible with our partners as we first think we are, right? You guys experience that, right? Not just me.
No, yeah, and
Never.
it takes time and it takes work. It takes constant work.
Right.
But I think it's interesting that it really comes about getting the right choice first, picking the right person. And many times we didn't have enough experience to be able to do that when we made those choices, which I think has a direct bearing on how successful that relationship is going to be.
Right.
And also at that point you might be not mature enough in relationships to be able to spend the time and effort to work it. It might have been the right person, but you didn't really give it the chance because you couldn't get past the anger, or you couldn't get past the aggravation, or whatever it was that broke the marriage up. And but just out of curiosity, is there a number for the third marriage? What percentage of those succeed?
I don't know that number. I don't know that number.
Seems to be working fine for me. That's all I can say.
Three's the charm. Three's the charm. Stick with it. But I think.
So I'm sorry, I didn't want to
ahead.
interrupt, but we have a question. This is great because this is what we're trying to frame for you in our discussion here. So sorry to interrupt you, Shauna, but Bill wants to know by email what is attractive about spouses, whether they're husbands or wives who are veterans. Well, Bill, of course we know from Marines it's the uniform, right?
The dress blues.
You know, I think, and Bill also wants to know, what are some of the unique challenges faced by military spouses? Bill, we acknowledge your email. We thank you for these questions. I want to table these questions for when we get to our guests, because we've got some excellent guests tonight who are going to share from their experiences, and Shauna's going to interview them. Kevin and I, we're going to go get a cup of tea or something, right? And so we're going to let Shauna interview these spouses. And Shauna, you've got a lot more to share. We've run out of time for this segment. But really looking forward to how you spend the next 30, 40 minutes with our guests tonight.
Plenty of time to really get into the
really
nitty-gritty.
dig in.
Thank you for this expertise. Thanks for being here. Coming up again, Shauna and two couples will have an open discussion about marriage and how to practice healthy communication with loved ones. Kevin and I will give the floor to Shauna and the guests, but we'll return later, much later in the show. Heck, maybe we won't even come back. If it goes well enough, we'll just go home. But we hope that you stay tuned with us, and we appreciate your questions and comments. We already got one from Bill. We're live tonight, so please call or message us if you have questions or comments for any of our guests. They're ready for you. We want to hear from you. We'll return after this moving story of Taylor and Danielle, a severely injured veteran and his dedicated wife.
There had been an accident, and I thought that it was just the phone tree in action, and he was kind of just letting me know about something that happened, and never thought twice that it was Taylor. So I was like, oh, okay. And then he said, it was Taylor. Taylor stepped on an IED. And I got out of the car and kind of paced around. I got sick and everything, and I immediately just wanted to be by his side. And I knew that he was in Afghanistan, and he had to still jump from hospital to hospital before he got to the United States. When Taylor was about ready to deploy, I just said, just come back. I was worried about his mental state. I didn't want him to come back any other way than how our friendship was built on. I just wanted the same person to come back. I wasn't scared for him to get hurt or anything like that. That never crossed my mind. I thought the hardest part of deployment would be not seeing him for 6 to 8 months.
Well, when I was in the hospital, probably once I got out of the ICU in the intensive care unit, I was up on the 4th floor, and then they back off, on the pain meds a little bit and start waking up a little bit. And Danielle basically lived in that room, slept on the little reclining chair that they had, and then and basically would just leave, to go shower at a hotel and come back, and she was there for pretty much everything. She'd be always writing down the everything the doctors said, and keeping a little hospital diary type thing. And
You hungry?
Yeah. I'm gonna grab myself a brownie treat. Oh, hey, a little brownie treat.
It's ironic now because he literally came back missing all of his limbs, but is exactly the same person he was before he left. And I don't think anything has changed because we built our relationship based on a strong foundation of being best friends, and we still are. So we're just kind of working our way through a different life that we didn't think that we'd ever have, living at a hospital for 1.5 years and such, but we'll get to our end point, our end goal, just the same way. We tried not to look at what life was a few weeks ago and what life was now, and what he could have done before and what he can do now. We didn't try to look at the big picture. We'd set little goals along the way, and if it was sitting up in bed, it was sitting up in bed, and that was our goal for that week.
hanging out with our friends and just doing everything that we did before. All this has been about, finding a new or a different way to do it, but the end goal, is to get back to, as normal as it can be and all that. So just finding different ways to do it, little tricks here and there. I definitely like driving. That brings back a huge level of independence, when you can drive somewhere and you can walk around, that's a big part of the puzzle there. So basically getting that drivability back. We're looking forward to taking the next step and moving on to the next thing and getting back to Iowa.
Well, we found our dream piece of land, and so hopefully over Thanksgiving or Christmas we can close on it, and then come spring when all the snow melts and everything, and we already kind of have been focusing on what we want the house to look like, we can just hit the ground and run in spring and build it, and he can retire and we can move back home and life can move on to the next phase.
Welcome back to Veterans Voices. We showed you that video of Taylor and Danielle because we wanted you to see what it looks like to have someone's back. Tonight we're discussing relationships and marriage. If you have a question or comment, give us a call, email, or anonymous chat and we'll add you to our discussion. I'm now joined by two couples. Welcome Bill and Peggy, Steve and Maggie, to the set.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
So let's kick it off by talking about how couples come together. Now, in my model, I've talked about the cocaine rush phase of relationships when you first fall in love. But love doesn't always develop that way. Sometimes it hits you like a lightning bolt, and sometimes it develops slowly. You don't even know that it's developing until you realize you miss each other. And we have some stories maybe that illustrate both of those kinds of ways. I'm looking at you, Bill, because you shared a really neat story. Would you share that with us about how you knew Peggy was the one?
You know, it sounds like a hokey story, but a buddy of mine calls me up and says, I got 3 young ladies I need to drive to a party. Can you come pick me up? I picked up Johnny and I picked up the 3 young ladies. Peg's one of them. She's in the back seat. She's sitting in the middle of my old 50 Chevy. And I look in the rearview mirror and the first thing I see is her eyes. And I fell in love with those eyes. Swear to God, from that moment on, I was in love with those eyes.
I hear stories like that all the time, so I don't think it sounds hokey. I think it sounds like...
It's a true story.
Yeah, sounds like a true story. But the way that you came together was a little bit different. You were working together. Can you tell us about how you came to be?
Yeah, we were working together for about 3 years, and we were police officers, and we worked in a car together for 12 hours a day, and we developed a really good relationship. You know, when you deal in situations where you have to like really rely on the other person, it makes you close.
Mm-hmm.
And when I left after working together for 3 years to take another job, I felt like I left a piece of myself behind, and that's kind of where it started.
Mm-hmm.
It was it was different. When she first came, I didn't like her. She just wasn't a person I liked for a while, and we started working together for the longest time, and then when she left, that's when it hit me.
Yeah.
You know, to me, she was just somebody I worked with, but we got along great together. I mean, we went through a lot of stuff together, so it was like, when she was gone, it was just like, no sad.
Yeah.
So.
Well, one of the things about marriage is that we learn more about each other as we go, right? We're always learning, right? I heard a story the other day. We were talking about how you would have taken Peg to her prom, if not for a miscommunication and the fact that you took 2 other women to prom.
Yeah.
And you just learned that about each other when we sat down to talk, which I thought was so funny. You don't have to share that story. I've kind of shared it, but anything you've learned about each other that was surprising or that you became grateful for as you developed your relationship with each other?
For me, having worked with Steve, I really admired that he never asked you to do anything he wouldn't do first or show you how to do. And he was a true, just a true leader. And I think that for me, having grown up in a home that did not have a very good father figure, having a man with those kinds of caring characteristics was really good for me. I think that was my first introduction to that, you know, guys can be okay.
And that's actually a really good segue to the question posed by Bill a little bit ago about what is it about military, you know, you were involved in police work together, I understand, so that's kind of a similar skill set in some ways. Maybe that's attractive. We talked about leadership just now. Do you all have any thoughts on that? Some of the special pieces of that attraction-wise or maybe challenges related to that?
No.
No?
Well,
Not helping you there.
Yeah.
I think it's very attractive when someone is willing to run into danger instead of run away from it. I think it takes a very special kind of person. Just that's why I have so much admiration for the military. I myself didn't serve. I find it very scary to be, dropped into a foreign country and be a target. And I think it takes a very special person to do that. So I think that's what I find attractive, whether it be the military or law enforcement or fire department or anything like that.
When I first started working at the VA about 8 years ago, I thought that people would be anything but avoidant of whatever challenges came their way. And what I found was pretty surprising, that in terms of combat situations, veterans often are trained to perhaps advance into territory that others would fear to tread. But sometimes not so much in their intimate relationships. Sometimes it feels incredibly risky to take chances with your interpersonal relationships and be vulnerable and really show who you are to your partners. And so I've spent a good deal of time helping people to do that, helping people to see that that's the territory to kind of move into. Do any of you have any thoughts on the process of really becoming more vulnerable with each other over time in a relationship?
I don't think it's more vulnerable over time. It's vulnerable in the beginning.
Okay.
You're very guarded on what you do or say. I mean, after years, we've been, that's what, 15 years now?
Yeah, about.
Pretty close. Now we can talk about just about anything. But I think in the beginning it's more guarded than now. Still have things here and there, but I mean, it's what you do with it.
So as trust has developed, you felt less guarded over time?
Yeah, I mean, it's still there. Don't get me wrong, it's still there, but yeah, it's down a bit.
It's kind of a work in process, as marriage is, right, for all of us. And one of my goals tonight is to definitely put out the message that even very happy, committed relationships are not fantasy, that there's challenges that we all work through and things that we have to negotiate. One of the things that we talked about was the need to maintain some independence, perhaps, in a relationship. A lot of the younger couples I meet with have this kind of pressure to merge their identities and do everything together all the time and kind of become an entity that's kind of shared in every single way. And I'm not sure that's very healthy for our marriages. It doesn't really give us much room to grow. So Peg, I thought maybe you could reflect, as we were kind of talking before the show, on ways that you've kind of maintained independence as well as togetherness in your marriage to Bill.
Well, I think when we first decided to start our family, we sat down and we made the decision that we didn't want other people raising our children, so that I would quit my job and I would be the at-home mother and he would be the breadwinner. And so we took those roles very seriously. I didn't expect a lot from him in my part of it, and of course there wasn't much I could do for him in his part of it. But in so doing, I think that forced me, at least, to become a lot more independent, as I had to be there in the situations with the children and with myself and all that, that I couldn't count on him to be there because he was at work. And I had to handle all that, and that was good. But over time, I don't know. I'm not sure.
I have things I do that she's not with me. Okay, I love hunting. I love fishing, and Peg's not a hunter, and Peg doesn't like getting up early in the morning. So I kind of
Not to go out and sit in a pond.
yeah. So yeah. So yeah, you don't want to spend 24/7 together. You can't. It's just you have to grow a little bit apart. We've been together been married almost 49 years. So it's hard to remember her not being part of me.
Yeah. Looks like we have a call now from Bill in Discovery Bay. Bill, are you there?
I just wanted to know, from the couples that are on the panel tonight, what what would you say is the biggest thing that contributed to your successful marriage? And I understand that, you know, there are different ways that you met, but what contributed to you being still married today?
That's a really good question.
For me, I think that the thing that has kept us together is the fact that I understand that there's work that I have to do myself. I work alongside him with a lot of veteran issues, with the Veterans of Foreign Wars in Brentwood. And I hear a lot about how a lot of the issues that people have in the marriages that I talk to people about with, which are our military families, is the traumas that they've experienced. And that seems to be the focus of what is causing issues in the marriage. And I don't believe that. I believe that everybody, no matter if you've come from, you know, Afghanistan or Iraq or you know, haven't been anywhere to serve in their country, you come with your own baggage and your own problems. And I think that as long as both people are continuously working on themselves to better communication, better themselves physically. I've just started working out. I hired a personal trainer and really working on myself. And I have noticed that that has made a great impact on our relationship because I'm not looking for Steve to validate every part of my life anymore. I have a self-worth, I have ambitions, I have goals, I have things that I can talk to him, new experiences. So if you're with each other all the time and you're never going out and seeking your own life and your own experiences, it kind of leaves you dead in the water, I think.
I agree.
So I don't know if that answers the question.
It would be boring.
Yeah.
Oh, that definitely answers the question. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Bill. It looks like we lost a call from Jennifer, so if you want to call us back, Jennifer.
Did we get Ryan's email?
And we have an email from Ryan coming in. What would you recommend to myself and others who find it difficult to be rational and calm in situations that trigger a deep emotional response? Can I take that one?
It's all yours.
I could do a full show on that one. I think that one of the things to realize is that our brain can be hijacked by the rear part of our brain back here, which is the reptilian brainstem, when we're overwhelmed by strong emotions. And if we can recognize the signs that that is happening, and one way to do that is to take very inexpensive intervention. Take a heart rate monitor. They sell them cheaply nowadays. I get no kickbacks. Put that heart rate monitor on yourself. It doesn't lie about what's going on inside. And then I've had veterans that will talk to their spouse and say, okay, when my heart rate is up above this level, it's not going to be productive. So I'm going to go take that cue and go make a tactical withdrawal and go down-regulate. Now, veterans have all kinds of ways to down-regulate, right? I mean, veterans are very good at this. We learn how to control breath, we learn how to shoot a weapon, because you learn how to down-regulate. So the ways that you do that part are not very hard, they're pretty instinctive. But the key is really recognizing it before you escalate, before your brain gets hijacked. And there's some very inexpensive, very practical ways to do that. But I think it's also important to commit to protecting those you love from your own rage. And so that means really working on emotional self-mastery and working with a good counselor to help you get there if necessary. Okay, any other thoughts from any of you on Ryan's email or the call from Bill?
I have something. When I'm in a situation like that, I kind of go out into the garage, my man cave, do some woodwork, do something out there, and then come back in and talk. I'm a little bit calmer then, not a lot of bit, a little bit. but it's more of it's a better conversation to come in.
Yeah.
It's like starting over again and working it out. So
Right.
it kind of works for me.
It works well. That's the tactical withdrawal.
Yeah.
And the thing about that, to do it really well, you have to signal to your partner, I am going to go calm myself down because I love you. I'll be back later. And then you have to come back and initiate that contact so they know it's not a way of avoiding the conversation, right?
Yeah.
So you go calm down, come back, and you initiate again. We have a call from Nicole in Brentwood. Nicole, are you there?
Here, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Hi, so my question is, for those of you that have children, how do you guys teach your children to live a, for lack of a better word, correct marriage, or how to have that relationship and show your kids a marriage that is what it's supposed to be?
Another great question.
That's a good question.
Yeah, it's a really good question.
For us, we try not to argue in front of the children. We try to, if one of us has made a decision about something that involves the children, we never change that parent's, what they've decided to do. Even if we don't agree with it, we will talk about it later and say, well, you know, maybe you could have done it this way, or maybe you could have done it that way. But at that point, we always show a team front.
Yeah, right.
And that and kids need to understand that marriage is not a fairy tale. It is. You're not going to always agree. You're not going to have moments. You know, you're going to argue. You're going to. That's what, you know. I tell my daughters. You know, they love watching these romances on TV, and you know, all of us do.
Right.
Well, the ladies do. But it's not real.
Can we pick that thought up in the next segment? We're going to go to the next segment. Veterans Voices is live tonight, and we're taking your relationship questions and comments. We'll be back for more discussion after this short message from Give an Hour.
Hello, I'm Barbara Van Dalen, the president and founder of Give an Hour. Give an Hour is a national nonprofit organization that provides free mental health care to our returning troops, their families, and their communities. We have well over 7,000 mental health professionals in the network. We're in every state and every territory, and so far we've given well over 100,000 hours of care. When men and women come home from war, they face a number of challenges: post-traumatic stress, traumatic brain injury, depression, anxiety, family relationships. They struggle to find jobs, so it's a whole range of issues. The Departments of Defense and Departments of Veterans Affairs are doing more than they've ever done, but those government agencies can't do it all. So Give an Hour has created a national network of mental health professionals. They are providing their services free. The veteran or military service member or family member goes to our website. They're given a list of providers that are right there in their community. If for some reason there isn't a provider near them, they contact us and we locate a provider for them. They begin to do the work that they need to do to heal. There's no money that exchanges hands, no insurance forms, no paperwork of any kind. The military personnel are able to seek care when they need it, how they need it, for as long as they need it.
Thanks for staying with us. That was a video from Give an Hour, which is an excellent free mental health resource for military service members and veterans. Nathan and Kevin will return shortly with additional mental health resources and upcoming veterans events. Thank you for calling in tonight. Some excellent questions. Keep the calls coming, keep the emails coming. Tonight we're discussing relationships, and we'd love for you to join the discussion either way, even anonymously. So we were talking about how we all kind of, maybe some of us, like the fantasy idea, but real marriage isn't a fantasy. I mean, I certainly know that one of the things you find out is that you're not so hot yourself. You know, if you kind of being honest over time, you get to discover that about yourself, right, Bill?
I knew that a long time ago.
In any good marriage, right? So let's talk about maybe some of the struggles and how you've come through those and worked together on some of those.
Okay.
You had mentioned, yeah, some of the difficult or more rocky times that we thought we might talk about tonight.
Yeah. I suffer from PTSD, and I think our first real hard time, my father passed in '78, and I went through a really bad time in my life, a real bad time. I didn't realize I had PTSD. I can look back with all the training I've had now and realize it was all the symptoms at that time. If I was her, I would have divorced my bud. Okay, she stuck with me, okay? And it was really a very dark period for me, and it had to be a dark period for her for what I put her through.
It was.
Without a doubt, you know. I don't know what else I can tell you on that outside of and with PTSD, when I lost my mother in 2001, once again, it creeped in, and I could feel it coming this time.
Right.
Okay, and that's when I was finally diagnosed in 2002 with what I've got. And you know, thanks to the VA and thanks to all that went along with that, the counseling and whatever, it helped me understand what my problem was. Didn't cure it, but it helped me to understand it.
Yeah, it's really hard when you don't understand it. This is really engaging our audience, and we have another email coming in, which is, how can military spouses support veterans with PTSD?
Well, when Bill exhibited in the early years the symptoms that we didn't know what they were, I think partly we did and didn't want to recognize it. But quitting wasn't an option, point one. We were going to find a way through it. But I wish I had someone teach me the symptoms then. I wish I knew. And the reason I say that is because of what Bill by email is asking. If I only knew that he really wasn't mad at me, it would have made such a big deal. Because I'd constantly say, why are you mad at me? What did I do wrong?
And I wasn't mad at her.
And he'd say, I'm not mad at you. You didn't do anything. But he was acting mad. What else would he be mad at, right? If I only knew then, it could have...
Would have saved you a lot of pain.
It absolutely would have saved a lot of pain. Yeah.
And I see Steve and Maggie are kind of resonating with some of this. Yeah.
So, you know, for spouses who think that their husbands may be suffering from this, A, it's not your fault, and he's not mad at you. And help him. You know, give him some space, but then kind of encourage him to get help. It's the best thing he ever did, even though it was 40 years later.
And I get a lot of people that come into my office and say, my wife told me to come here. You know.
See?
So it works. It definitely works.
Did I say that?
I don't know. What do you guys want to add?
You know, this cost me, PTSD cost me my first marriage. And I used to come home from work and just put everybody, pretty much just tuned them out. And I'd just go in my room. Early in the morning, I'd be gone. And I did that forever. And I finally, we ended up divorcing or separating, and then finally divorcing. But I didn't get help for it until a couple of years when I was with Maggie. And she kind of drugged me down to 10 Douglas to meet some of the for some vet help, and they helped me. And since then, I've been, you know, back and forth between the VA once in a while. I didn't like group counseling. I didn't like the one-on-ones, but I did that. It took a while to go into group counseling, and I still don't like it, but you know, I do once in a while if it's fun. Your class was excellent, and that's all I can say for that. It was fun. But it's a lot of work, you know. With my my ex-wife and kids, you know, we get along great now. She's like a best friend, and this all could have been avoided way back when if I had actually went and got help. They told me I needed help. They told me when I got off the airplane, just walking down the steps, I was a different person, and I was like, yeah, right, whatever. You know, you just don't want to hear it. It's said it takes this long to figure out, wow, if I would have listened back then. I mean, I'm happy where I'm at now, but, you know, things like this could have been avoided way back when, could have been fixed.
A lot of pain, and it goes both ways. It affects the veteran and it affects the spouse. You
And
know.
not only that,
And the
the
children.
family.
And the
yeah.
children.
Definitely the children. Yeah.
And so part of it is in kind of making this transition to seeing that your spouse can become your battle buddy. You know, we talk about having each other's back. What does that look like? You know, what does that mean for what you can share with them so that they can really know and have your back and help you get the support and kind of surround you with that support.
And learning what helps your spouse relax when they are stressed. Go into your man cave, going hunting, whatever your thing is, when they need, let them go. Go.
And it gives you guys a break.
Exactly. It's all good.
And I think for us, some of the bigger fights that we've had were over dumb things. And I think taking a step back and understanding sometimes being right about something stupid really doesn't matter. And I think that for me, that's what, because we have kind of like a similar personality. So both of us are like, no, I'm right, no. And we would just be like locked in on trying to prove the other person is wrong. And it took me, after going to your class, just the realization that, you know what, I need some help too to understand myself and why is it so important for me to be right, you know, over something that like really either one of us didn't care about at all.
Right.
The issue was being right.
Yeah.
And knowing when to walk away and knowing when not to chase them or follow them and
When to respect
exactly
space, right? And that's why when you say, I've got to go calm myself down, that has to be respected. You know, couples therapy can be very unfriendly sometimes to men. And so sometimes couples come in and it's important to say, you know, look, the relationship is the patient here. I'm going to go after you and you with equal kind of equal vengeance when needed, right? Because we all need to change. We all need to work on ourselves to get there, to have each other's back. Bill, I hear the thoughts spinning in your head.
It's something that I just wanted to throw out there. It is so important for the veteran to have a supporting spouse, okay? The support she has given me through 48, almost 49 years of marriage is unbelievable. I spoke at Las Positas College, the psychology club, a few years back, and I ended the speech with the statement that I wanted to thank somebody in the audience, and Peg was in the audience there. And it is a person with the longest arms in the world, because they reach all the way from our bed to the deepest, darkest jungles of Vietnam. She grabs me by the collar and yanks me back into reality, okay? Even after all these years, I still have those damn nightmares. But she's there to help me. She's there to pull me back.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you. That's a beautiful picture of how to have each other's back. I hadn't noticed your very long arms. They look
Very long.
Very long.
All the way from
Very,
our
very
bed to the
long.
jungles of Nam.
There you go.
Made that class laugh.
There you go.
You know, I hear what he's saying, and I feel the need to say this is that I know Lori, his ex, was very, very supportive, and it still didn't save their marriage, because part of the disease, or what I'm not, the disorder, is avoidance, and he wasn't ready to deal with it. So I'm glad that it worked for you guys, and it works for a lot of people. Even though I have a great husband right now and 3 wonderful children, I'm sorry it didn't work for them, you know, because it is it is horrible when you go and do something selfless like he did, go serve our country, and to get broken in a way that you lose a piece of yourself, you know, and the chain reaction, you know, his wife, his children, it's just sad.
Yeah,
you
it
know,
can cause a lot of damage before people even realize it.
I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that, you know, he was very much supported. It just, in that case, didn't work.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. Thank you for that. Steve, did you want to add anything?
No, it's she hit it right on the head. I did. I had a lot of support. They tried.
Yeah.
She tried a lot to get me help, and I didn't want it. I didn't need it.
So there's a time of readiness, right? And
yeah, you know, I didn't want it because I didn't think I needed it. But then on the other hand, with the job, I was always in my on guard state. I had to have that adrenaline kept going.
So looking back now, if you could talk to your earlier self, what would you say about, no, you need to do this? How would you have known? Okay.
I really do. And, you know, after I retired, a lot of it was, wow, you know, because that adrenaline's gone, you know, and I was, what am I going to do? What am I do? Fishing. But, you know, I was at a loss of what to do. I've always had, we were always deploying somewhere, either, mostly with work. We were always going somewhere, so we were always up. You know.
Always on mission. Let's talk about that for a minute, because that came up when I talked to you about how your family stays on mission and how that's actually a central value of how you do family. Can you talk about how community service has fed you as a couple and in terms of your kids?
Well, Steve's the commander for the VFW, that 10789 in Brentwood, and the whole family, to include his children and his ex-wife, all support him in his mission.
We put them to work too.
Right.
When
you're going to stay, you're going to work.
when one of us has something that's important to us and we're working on, we do it as a team. I think that shows everybody that they're equally as important. So, you know, when Kenny has a football game, we all go watch him. When Karina wrestles, we go watch, you know, Karina. Brianna was dancing for a while. We would go watch her performances.
So everybody goes.
So having each other's back is a family thing.
Yes.
It starts at the top. We had a question earlier about, you know, how do you sort of model a good relationship for your kids? And it seems like one of the ways that we can do that is by making the idea of having each other's back a family thing.
Well, that and community service is important. It's an important component for his well-being. That's his therapy. When you're deployed, when you're in law enforcement, when you're in any kind of service, that drives you. That's your family. That's what's important to you. And when you're not doing that anymore, you really feel lost.
Right.
And I saw that with him when he retired, and the VFW became his family, became his you know, his buddies, and the work that they do together, helping other people. He's still doing a service.
And what's neat about your story is that it's not just that he has this family at the VFW and then this family at home, but that his families have become intertwined through the community service that you do with your children and bring everybody in there together. And that's kind of the concept of an extended tribe of those you love and trust.
Right, and I'm sure for Bill, pretty much the same. You know, it's something that keeps you going.
It keeps you going. I'm the president of the Vietnam Vets of Diablo Valley, and I got the easiest job in the world. It's my board that does all the work. And I tell you.
Any follow-up thoughts just to sort of wrap up here? We have a few seconds left. Any last words?
Marriage is a support of each other. Okay? It's two people being brought from two different families, two different ways of life, starting their own. And it's not an easy thing to do.
No.
A relationship is the toughest thing in the world to accomplish. Okay? It takes work on both sides. And the work never really ever stops.
No, never really stops.
And that's probably the key to a healthy, successful marriage, is that you never stop fighting for it. You never
Right.
stop working towards making it better, because it can be better.
Yeah, you
Listen to each
definitely.
other.
Yeah, you definitely don't show up as soulmates, but over the long process of learning how to have each other's back, you can become each other's soulmate. In January, we brought you the unique story of Denny and Rod, two Navy veterans who became friends while serving in a psychiatric ward. Tonight, we continue with their story as they recall being gay in the military during a time when it wasn't accepted.
Hi, we're back to Veterans Voices. Nathan Johnson, host of the show here, along with Denny Briggs and Rod Odgers, two Navy veterans. Thank you for being here today. And I know a little bit about you, but let's start off. Just give us a real brief overview of your service in the military.
Well, Rod and I met when we were stationed at the Oak Knoll Naval Hospital on the psychiatric service. Rod was the leading psychiatric technician on a ward that was sort of nicknamed the Brig Ward because it was housed patients that the Navy's brig on Treasure Island couldn't handle. They were so disturbed.
You both are gay veterans. You served in the Navy during the time in which, though your status as gay could not be discussed. In fact, there was a very distinct fear about being gay, and if anyone even accused you of being gay, it had consequences. Tell us about serving during that time.
It was very difficult because I was evaluating people for their homosexuality and being homosexual myself, but I couldn't reveal this to anybody.
Right.
And here I would be evaluating them with a Rorschach or something like that. 3 hours later, I was a court-martial officer. I mean, this was absolutely almost incompatible.
You were a service member, and you were gay in the military, and so here you were tasked with these responsibilities. How difficult was that?
It was terrifying. It was a terrifying time. I felt like I was living like a criminal all those years. You know, I was probably doing good work, you know, and I mean, I think I was, and the best I could. But I also felt like I had to live like a criminal. I never said anything. You know, we're talking about friendship after the military. I had lots of friends in the military, but the minute I got discharged and they found out I was gay, through whatever reason, you know, mostly not from direct admittance or questioning, they see something like I'm be wearing white shoes, you know, you're gay or something, and so they all dropped me. And the only friend I had left, and still is, of course, is Denny. And so it was terrible. You know, it was pretty bad, and I think that a lot of us suffered really bad because when I would see gay patients come in on the wards, you know, kind of thing, I couldn't very well go up and say, you know, I understand what you're going through. I'm scared, and they already been caught, right? And they're already going to go through all this stuff, you know. And when
it's interesting you say been caught, because that's exactly right. That was the situation, right?
If they would see you going into a gay bar, if they'd see you, even someone didn't like you, they could say that you were. It was.
And the procedure was then they'd send them to the psychiatric ward for evaluation, which is, they all came to us. And the interesting thing in relationships during all this time, I didn't suspect that Rod was gay, and did you think I was gay?
No, I didn't.
Oh, you didn't even know each other?
I didn't even think
Although
of it.
you worked as this tight team in this
it
unique
wasn't
mission.
until after that later on.
It wasn't until after you were discharged, because the fear was so strong.
Right.
And because the consequences were so severe, a dishonorable discharge comes with severe consequences. It affects employment, VA benefits, your self-esteem, right?
When I was mustered out of the Navy, I was at TI Treasure Island, and we were in one barracks, and another barracks was full of people, gay people who were being discharged.
Less than honorable.
Less than honorable kind of thing. But they, you know, and I would see them, they'd be harassed by whoever was in charge of that, but, you know, and I would come there and it felt so hopeless, you know, to see all that going on, because a lot of that was. And it went on for a lot of us, you know, I mean, and a lot of people won't talk about it today.
You served during a difficult time in which your individual identity as a gay service member could not be shared. You had to hide behind that identity, and that you've remained as friends ever since, and you're a role model. Both of you are role models for service members and veterans who are getting out of the military today, and how important it is to stay connected, and how unique those experiences are, and how you can reflect on them. So I thank you both for being on the show. Denny and Rod, thank you for being here today and sharing your voice with us. You've just watched part 2 in our series on Navy veterans Denny and Rod, and we are privileged that they chose to share their story with us. Honestly, we were excited to share that story for months. Are you a veteran with a story to tell or a talent to share? If so, we'd love to hear from you and possibly have you on our show. Reach out and tell us about yourself. While we were gone, we had Anon, who sent us a message from live chat. And Anon wants to know, what can we do to help with supporting this show?
First of all, there are some state grants that are, CalVet, the California Department of Veterans Affairs, is a major supporter through Prop 63 money that has been given to support this show for the last 2 years. We would encourage you to contact the California State Department of Veterans Affairs and let them know how important this show is to you, so we can get continued funding. It's the majority of the funding right now is coming from that state grant, and we're very thankful to CalVet for doing that. We're also accepting private funding, but we're working through the Diablo Valley Vietnam Veterans for that, and any monies that come in help to sustain the show. We are on a very limited budget, and we really appreciate the question, and that was not a plant, that was a real question.
Yeah. You can provide us with valuable feedback as a part of our viewer advisory panel. Sign up on our homepage, ContraCostaTV.org/Veterans Voices, and you'll be sent a short survey after every show. Connecting with you helps us collect valuable feedback so we can better assist our veteran population.
There are many free mental health resources for veterans and their families. The following resources are also listed on our homepage. The Soldiers Project provides free therapy to post 9/11 veterans and their loved ones. For more information, go to thesoldiersproject.org. GiveAnHour.org provides free mental health care to veterans and military personnel. The Concord Vet Center provides free individual and group counseling services.
In the coming weeks, there are many veterans events you can take part in. I'm going to go through them quickly. On March 1st at 10 a.m., Las Positas College will be hosting the 5th annual Honoring Women Veterans. Lindsay Sin, Deputy Director, will be there. This event is free to the public. More information, go to laspositascollege.edu. The American Legion Post 29 in Martinez will be hosting a corned beef cabbage. Very delicious. Call 925-957-1662. On March 8th, Operation Veterans Center Funding will hold an event to encourage legislators to fund California Community College Veteran Resource Centers. For more information and RSVP, call the number listed. The Air Force Band of the Golden West will be holding a free concert at Las Positas on March 13th. Again, laspositascollege.edu.
Today we have the honor of displaying a shadow box from Army veteran Ernest Easterday. A special thanks goes out to his wife, Linda Easterday, for loaning it to us tonight.
Tune in next month for our discussion on the new administration and changes that will affect veterans. A very important show. We hope to create a healthy dialogue that will incorporate our audience's thoughts and concerns regarding veterans' benefits and the changes to the VA. Our goal is to moderate that conversation and have an open discussion to give a platform for your voice. To rewatch tonight's episode, check back on our homepage later this week. Check your cable provider's schedule for rebroadcast times. This is Veteran Voices of Contra Costa wishing you all a good evening. Thank you for serving.